Hello there, crafty friends. My name's Chris, and today we're going to learn how to cut this reusable stencil with our Cricut cutting machine. Let's get started. Hello, my name is Chris from Daily Dose of DIY, and I just wanted to take a second to say thanks for being here. If you're not already a member of the DIY tribe, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. So today we're going to make a reusable stencil with our Cricut cutting machine, and here's the supplies we're going to need. Of course, I will link everything down below too, so you know what to get. This is Mylar reusable stencil material. You're going to need a board or a piece of furniture to stencil, a tape measurer, Elmer's multi-purpose spray adhesive or some other brand. It's basically a removable spray adhesive, so we can spray the back of our stencil and move it around. Some stencil brushes and or sponges, and our paint and a regular brush if you want to paint the base of your board or your furniture, whatever you're stenciling, and our Cricut cut mat. So first we're going to go over to Design Space, and I'm going to show you how to get this stencil ready, and then we'll be back here to get it cut. Okay, there's a few things you need to know about reusable stencils. They're different from vinyl stencils, but first let's go over here and get our text started. I'm going to click text over on the left menu bar, and then our text box will come up, and I'm going to go ahead and type in gather. Make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. It's already in the font I wanted to show you. Once you type text, the text menu will then appear at the top of your menu, and over towards the left of that is where you can select fonts. So if you go in and type in stencil, it will bring up what's called stencil fonts, and these are good for making reusable stencils. If you're making vinyl stencils, it doesn't matter what font you use, but for reusable stencils, you're going to need a stencil type font, or I can show you how to change your font to be a stencil type font. And what a stencil font does, if you can see here, like on the E, there's this little gap in here where it's not going to be cut, so that center will stay attached to the rest of the stencil. If this E were closed, we would lose that center of the E. And the same with the A, you can see a gap right here. And the same with the G, you can see that gap right there. So if we change this to a regular font, let's see what's available here. Okay, so a font like this where you can see it's closed, if we cut this with a reusable stencil, we're going to lose those centers. Now, a vinyl stencil, it doesn't matter because vinyl's sticky and those centers will still stick there, right? But a reusable stencil is not going to be sticky. That's why we reuse it. If you wanted to use a regular font like this to make it a stencil, you can come over here into shapes and pick a square. I'm going to change the color of that square just so we can see better what we're doing. Let's make it red. And then down at the bottom left of that square, I'm going to hit the little lock button, which will unlock it and allow me to make this square super skinny. And then I can just put it up here and kind of line it up with the edge of that A. And then if you select them both and hit, and now I'm going to go over to the layers menu. On the bottom of the layers menu, you'll see the word slice. After they're both select, the slice button will appear. You click slice, and then you can move these out. It's going to cut a hole in it right there. So now you can see that center does have a place to go. It will be stuck. So that's one way to do a normal font, you'd have to go through any letter that has a center and add that little break there so it would stay attached. And if you're still not getting this, you'll be able to get it better once the stencil is cut and I can actually show you. But for now, I'm going to use Joy. I'm going to make a Christmas sign, and this is what I'm going to cut my stencil out of. Since the O is a snowflake, I don't have to worry about having that stencil font. So again, I'm not sure if I was clear on the font, so I'll go over here again. Let's just type Joy. If you click the font button to change the font and you search fonts, you type in stencil, it will bring up all these stencil fonts. These are available from Cricut and Cricut Access. There's some here. There's a Martha Stewart one you can buy. You can also, if you want your own fonts, you can go to defont.com, fontbundles.net, places like that. Same thing, search stencil, and it will bring up the stencil fonts that are acceptable to use for a reusable stencil. So that is for letters. Now, like things like here, like the snowflake, different designs you can cut out of reusable stencil as long as there's not a center in it, right? So if you're thinking, I'm going to use the example of a house, and if a house had a window in it, you would lose that window. It would just fall out. So with your designs, you also need to make sure you have that negative space connecting everything. Okay, moving on from that lesson. So to do a stencil, I'm going to go to the square again. And this is actually going to be the shape of my stencil. I'm going to hit the unlock button again. The piece of wood I'm working on is 5.5 inches high. So we can go up here to the top and where it says size. My width is 11 inches and my height is 5.5 inches. That's the size of the board I'm stenciling. Since I put the square, well, it's a rectangle now. Since I put this rectangle up second, it's going to cover up that Joy, but we can go back to the top menu, click arrange and send to back. That will bring my Joy to the front. And then this just gives me a visual on screen too of how big I need to make this Joy in relationship to my board. And then when I'm happy with the sizing of the Joy, I can go ahead and select both, go back to that top menu and click the align button, and then go down and click center. That's going to center the Joy exactly to the stencil, because Cricut's going to cut out this little rectangle too. That becomes our stencil. It's the same size as my board, so it's really going to help everything line up good. So then once you have everything centered, you want to come over here to the layers menu, and down at the bottom of the layers menu, click attach. And that's going to change it. You're going to see just the outline then of the Joy, and we're still going to have our rectangle, and that's perfect. We're going to click the Make It button. It will show us our cut mat here. Go ahead and click Continue. Once your machine is connected, you're going to click Browse All Materials. I'm connected to my Maker, so that's what comes up automatically. If you have an Explorer, set your dial to custom, and then you'll see that screen where you can browse materials. We're going to go to poster board. It's in there. There we go. It's 2 words, poster board. That's what you want to set it for to cut this Mylar stencil material. You still need just your fine point blade will cut it. So we're going to go back to the Cricut and load our Mylar on the cut mat, and I'll show you how to cut this. Okay, now we're ready to cut our Mylar for our stencil. We're going to go ahead and load it onto our Cricut cut mat. And just line it up here in the top corner on the left. And of course we have it set so it's going to cut our triangle like we need. and we're cutting under the poster board setting. I think I need to pull my Cricut up a little bit so I have clearance in the back. Go ahead and load the mats. And then when our Cricut light flashes, hit that and it will start to cut for us. Okay, so I had quite a few issues with my Maker machine not wanting to cut this stinking stencil. It was a little bit frustrating, so I pulled out my old Explorer to double check because I've made these several times before. So on my Explorer, I set my dial to poster board and it cut it perfectly. So I don't know what's up with my Maker, if I need to call support or why it wasn't cutting through. But I'm going to try one more time with a deep cut blade, and then I will come back and I will let you know the status of the Maker versus the Explorer. But there is definitely a difference in how these two machines cut. Never had an issue with my Explorer, but my Maker, the more expensive one's giving me all kinds of fits. So I'm gonna give it a few tests and try some things out, and I'll be back to let you know. Okay, I'm back. I put my deep cut blade in my Maker and I set it on the highest pressure setting. I tried a couple different cuts and it's really not cutting through this. When you remove this stencil material from your mat, you want to flip your mat over, pull the mat off the material. You can see 2 tries with my Maker, it did not cut with a deep cut blade on the strongest settings what my Explorer cut just set on the poster board setting like I originally used it. So I have an email out to Cricut. I think maybe my machine needs recalibrated. I don't know. If you have a Cricut Maker and the poster board setting works for you, if you try this, comment down below and let me know so we can let others know. I don't know what's going on with that. It's disappointing, but I'm glad I have my Explorer and we got this cut. So now I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to get this on your board and paint it. I'm gonna flip it over backwards. And this is where the adhesive spray comes in. It's just gonna help us keep it on the board. Got some poster board back here I'm going to set down just so I don't get glue all over my table. But all you do is really, I don't even know what's going to spray, there we go. Just a really light squirt on the back. There we go. And get a light coating of glue on there and then wait for it to dry. We don't want to stick that on the board wet, but once it's dry, it will be sticky. So we're going to give it just a few minutes to dry and then I'll be back to put it on the board. Okay, the glue is dry now and it's still sticky, but it's not wet. So we can go ahead and put it on our board and just press down. I'll get my shirt so and this will help it stay in place. It does help it seal the edges, but it's not going to seal as good as a vinyl stencil. So we need to be extra careful when we're painting. That's why you want a stencil brush that's flat on the end, like this one, or a sponge is what I typically like to use. So I have Coastal Cobalt. The blue shade of paint I'm going to paint this stencil with. I'm just going to pour a little bit on a paper plate. That's probably enough to do 10 signs, but that's okay. And then you just want to, this is a makeup sponge by the way. Makeup sponges are great for painting stencils. I like the ones with the sticks, but I couldn't find any. Dab it in your paint and then dab the extra paint off because you don't want a ton of paint on the sponge or it's going to bleed. And then very lightly dab up and down on the stencil. You can't really paint them with a brush like you can a vinyl stencil, because these, handy that they're reusable, right? But they are more apt to bleed. So painting will take you a little bit longer. Okay, so their painting's done and it looks like it's about dry. The great thing about this paint is it dries super quick. Then all we have to do is just pull our stencil up gently. And then this is reusable. It's still sticky on the back, so if you're going to do a bunch of different signs, you can go ahead and stick it to your next sign. If you want to save it to use for next time, just go ahead and wash it off. And then you can put it in a file folder or somewhere to use for next time. You can see some of the glue came off. You can just rub that off with your fingernails. It will come right off. And it's turned out pretty good. Want to use this design? I have it for free on my blog. I'll go ahead and link that down below for you too. Once again, my name is Chris with Daily Dose of DIY, and I thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you on the next video.